Beautiful. All right, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Challenging Class. Today, I'm your host, Renji Lee, and I will be interviewing Cecil Dwyer, the original host and creator of Challenging Class.
I am your guest.
How you doing?
Very good, actually, sir. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, my first question to you.
Yep.
Challenging Class is the name of the podcast. Tell me,
Yes.
how did you come up with that?
That's a great question. So I've been a teacher for a really long time. I think a long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to my 19th year, I
Yeah.
think, in September. And I think that every teacher that listens to this episode or every teacher out there probably can relate to the concept of having a challenging class. And so
Okay.
that's where the idea came from, because I really wanted to talk about what's going on in education. And every educator can relate to having that one class that's so challenging. But also the other piece to this was that this concept of challenging class, we're actually challenging the concept of class, like the class system, right? And I think that there's an assumption that private schools are better, and that only certain people can access them. I just wanted to kind of play on those words just to bring awareness to really what this podcast is about, which is just education, anything and everything related to education.
Beautiful.
Right? The good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between.
Okay. Well, quickly, let's go into that idea of class and into public versus private.
Yes.
Talk to me about public versus private and that whole debate.
Okay, so I have limited experience working in the private sector.
Right.
But I have actually had some experience working in a private school. So that was overseas, actually, where I worked at a private school for international students. And in that role, it was very eye-opening because for a multitude of reasons, really, but it's really just because of everything that these kids had access to. So if I think about the expectations and the universities and colleges that they were expected to go to, you would have pretty much all of your Ivy League schools, international schools that would come and do a presentation for these kids. And there was an expectation, again, that everybody was going to go to one of these institutions and that everybody was going to how can I put this? Make moves, let's say, when they get older, that they were going to do meaningful things, that they were going to become sort of powerful people. And their grades were not necessarily what mattered. It was the expectation still existed. Now, if I juxtapose that with a public school system, obviously that's heavily dependent on government funding, for example. And I find that in my experience in a public school, depending on the neighborhood you work in, there might be an expectation that everybody's going to, go on to higher education. But I also find that a lot of my work in public school was motivating students. I think that there's some different issues that come up in a public school system versus a private school system. One of which is, for example, in a private school system, I had to spend a lot of time justifying the grades that I gave students to parents.
Okay.
So there's a lot of parent sort of pressure. Whereas in the public school system, again, my experience has been that that's not the case. In fact, I would rather more parental involvement, to be honest with you, in the public school system. And I think that in some ways, some of my bigger issues would be that challenging class, like coming up with classroom management and being able to make sure that I can set the stage for actual learning to take place. Like, it's not a crazy environment. Like, it's calm and people are able to, be in that environment and do work without people screaming or a fight happening behind them or yelling and carrying on. So just two different experiences. But again, falls under the umbrella of education nonetheless.
Okay, just real quick, I want to go into that part about the environment. So private school, perhaps there's more funding. I want to talk a little bit about the environment. Did you find more fights in public schools or private schools?
That's an easy one. Public schools.
Okay, and why?
Oh my God. I don't even know if I have the answer to why.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, so I asked somebody the question the other day. We talked about this. I asked my friend, what is one of the things that you value most about the education that you had, or what is one of the toughest things, or one of the most useless things that you had to deal with in education?
Right.
But again, one of the things that he responded was he valued the idea that he got to meet different types of people from different walks of life with different personalities. And he credits school with being able to teach him how to navigate that, because obviously you get older and there's different people with different backgrounds and with different personalities, and you continue to have to navigate that. So there is value there. However, I think that when you're a kid, in the public school system, the good thing is, yes, I'm around all these different people, but then obviously there's conflicts. So people have to navigate that. So I find that in a public school system, yes, there's many people from different walks of life, but then that lends itself to a lot of miscommunication, disagreements, different perspectives and beliefs, and just simply people not liking each other, to be frank. And so that then becomes an issue because, I would say that in my experience in the public school system, I have had to break up so many fights that I cannot count. Like, I really can't. And then there's this weird space that you are in as a teacher, because if you don't intervene in the fight, then you are looked at as being neglectful.
Okay.
But if you do intervene in the fight, and you grab a kid, for example, you are now opening yourself up to allegations about, putting your hand. So you're almost damned if you do and damned if you don't.
It's a lose-lose
right?
kind of situation,
Like literally, I've had to bear hug kids and walk them away. And that kid could technically have turned around and gone and said, this guy grabbed me in a way that I didn't like, and I could have been sent home, right? So I'm constantly like having to make that decision. It's just making me think of like one example where I had a student, probably like my 5th or 6th year teaching, and he was a challenge. Okay, this guy was what we call an education oppositional.
An education op.
Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I forget that that's like a really, that's a slang term now.
It's a slang term now.
Okay, yeah.
You got some ops.
But
okay.
so we call it oppositional defiance in education, and he just didn't listen to anybody. And that's just how he was, whatever. You get to know students. But there was this one moment where he was in a class with another teacher, and the teacher put her hand on his back as if to say, settle down and stop. And he then turned around, went to the principal, and made this allegation. I don't like how I was touched by this teacher, so on and so forth. And that teacher was walked out of the building, right? And that teacher was on leave for a certain amount of time. Now, this is a student that had been a bully for many students and teachers, mind you, and that was oppositional, did not listen. But again, all it took was that one little statement, and the teacher was walked off the job. So it's just a weird dichotomy. It's a weird situation to be in, because obviously you want to help kids, but I find that that's part of my issue with education nowadays too, is that a lot of people are just worried. So it stops them from doing what they know in their hearts are the right things, because they're worried about getting in trouble, right?
It's a difficult thing for you to deal with, because at one side you're worried, but at the same time you want to do the right thing. And of course, then there's this whole thing of, okay, well, you spent so much time studying and working here, after working here for, maybe 19 years.
Right.
Then having someone being like, oh, this person broke up this fight and now they're suspended or something because of this.
Exactly.
It's just a situation where you don't want to be in. And I think as a teacher, you should have some credibility where people are like, this person has been an all-star for 19 years. You're like LeBron James of teaching 19 years. And it's like, after all this longevity of doing all this stuff, like, there should be some kind of leeway. But okay, because you like the LeBron James comment, let me go ahead and ask you about this. Longevity in teaching.
Yes.
We talk about teachers being burnt out.
Yes.
What do you think is key for longevity in teaching? Because 19 years is a lot, it's a lot of time.
Yeah, boundaries. Like, boundaries are key. I think in any job, But you'll notice now there's this trend where people send emails now where it's like, they'll have this kind of like tagline at the end that speaks to like you not feeling the pressure of responding
After business hours.
after business hours. And I know that there's governments out there as well that are kind of mandating that people are not forced to respond to emails and messages and do work related things after they're gone, right? But it's just not possible. Like, it's not possible to do this job and to do it well if you're not spending a bunch of time outside. And it's just the reality. It's like, and I don't think people fully understand that. Like, it's report card season right now. And I probably get 40 minutes a day
Yeah.
that I have as what's called a preparation period. And so within that 40 minutes a day, it's like I'm expected to plan for the class, do all these extra sort of menial things. I wouldn't even call them menial, but do all these different teaching related tasks. But there's an expectation that I'm supposed to get these report cards done. And I was talking about this to somebody earlier today, and it's like writing an essay for each individual student.
Yeah.
And the expectation is that you're going to get this done. And in most cases, we all expect teachers to get this done on their own time because 40 minutes a day simply is not enough to write 20 different essays. You know what I mean? I could use ChatGPT. I could, and to be fair, some teachers are starting to do that, but they're supposed to be personalized. Like I'm a parent. So you're thinking about from a parent's perspective, they want to actually know how their kid is doing.
Of course.
So if I want to do this job justice, like I actually have to put in a lot of time, effort, and yeah, I just don't think that's sustainable. So to do this job properly, again, to come around and answer your question again, we need to have boundaries, because this is where the teacher burnout comes from, right? When you're constantly burning the end of the candle, I forget how the saying goes.
Burn the candle at both ways.
At both ends. It's like, it's not sustainable. It's going to end up a situation where either you're not doing your job properly or your personal life is going to suffer in some sort of way. And I don't really know if the public fully understands that. Like, I think the pandemic gave us a glimpse into what that's like for teachers. And like for a minute there, people were saying, oh my God, pay these people millions of dollars. Like, I can't even handle it with one or two of my kids at home. Try imagining that with a class of 40 and they have to learn something.
And I kind of want to touch about that 40 number because, I've been living in this city for over 20 years, maybe 25 years. And from what I've seen, they build a lot of new vape shops, but there aren't many schools. But I know the city's population has almost doubled. So my question is, like, when you started, what were class sizes like? And what are they bigger now? Or like, where are all these kids going to school?
So I would say class sizes have remained more or less the same.
Okay.
I would say that you likely would find each classroom to be somewhere between 20 to 40 people. 20 to 40 people, especially once you get into the higher grades like high school, where there's an expectation that they're a bit more independent.
Right.
And I know that in our board, our system is such that when you're primary, so when you're grade 3 or younger, they try to cap the class sizes at 20, I believe. So that's a thing. But again, like, I think for people to understand, like, even 20, which is at the low end, is still like a lot of personalities to have to like navigate and deal with. And again, this is not babysitting. Like, we're teaching. So these kids have to learn something, right? And it can just be a bit challenging. And I think that, like I said earlier, the public just expects that we do this. And nobody really sort of questions how we do it. It's got to get done, right? And so again, thinking about the theme of this whole podcast, it's really just to bring awareness to that. This is not a 9-to-5 job. This is not a job for the faint of heart, and your teachers are putting in a lot of effort a lot of effort. Even though they may have their shortcomings, there's a lot of things that we are doing during our own personal time to make sure that students are successful.
I mean,
You know?
teaching is one of the most important things because you're literally training the next generation. So obviously we talk about, like, for example, with COVID, a lot of people weren't able to go to school during those years, and that's probably definitely affected their schooling. Maybe their parents tried to help, maybe they tried to learn online, but are there any cases where, like, you might have someone in grade 11 but their math skills are at grade 9, and like has anything like that happened?
Yes.
Because people are at different levels. Like when it
Yes.
comes to everything. But tell me a little bit about that and how you deal with it as a teacher.
Okay. Well. Okay. So there's a couple parts to this. So we do something that's called differentiated instruction. There's different terms to explain this, but the idea is that you meet kids where they're at,
Right.
right? And you try your best to differentiate the curriculum so that it meets everybody's like strengths, for example. So if you're a visual learner, I need to make sure I'm hitting that.
Right.
If you learn through moving, like what we call kinesthetic learning,
yeah.
right? Then I need to make sure that that's factored into my planning. We also do something called diagnostic testing, so or assessment for learning. So essentially, what this means is, like, before we even start something, I want to know where you're at.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you a test that's going to inform my teaching. So now I'm looking at this math test, for example, on fractions, and now I realize that, hey, you didn't learn how to compare fractions, or you didn't know how to you learn how to multiply fractions. So now I have to make a mental note of that, and then I have to go back perhaps and reteach that to you, or perhaps to the entire class, or a whole faction of the class. What the challenge now actually is that in high schools, what we're seeing is there's a push to not tier students, right? And so this has happened to some degree where there's no advanced level classes as much, where we want to give everybody the same chance. And so the problem here is that where you do have students that have gaps in their learning, so for example, let's talk about a grade 9 student that's coming to this math class when they're actually at a grade 6 level, but they're also in that same class as another grade 9 student that's like ahead of their class, and that could potentially be a grade 10 or 11 level in math.
Right.
And now the challenge is for the teacher to try to meet the needs of all of these students. So there's the curriculum baseline, there's what I'm supposed to be expected to teach. But if I have these students that are coming in this room and they don't know this stuff, I have no choice.
Yeah.
Or I do have a choice, really. I can go back and teach the stuff that they missed, or I can just say, that's not my problem, and just move on.
Yeah.
Right? So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because if I do go back and teach this stuff, well, now a parent or anybody for that matter could argue that I'm doing the rest of the kids a disservice because I'm not actually teaching what I'm supposed to be teaching at this level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm trying to close that gaps. So it's like, what do? It's like constantly like a juggling act, right? It's like I could, plan for these students that are doing really well and say, okay, you guys do this on your own while I meet with the kids that are a little bit lower. But it's like, is that fair? Is that equitable? Right? And a lot of teachers will tell you that's often what we do.
Yeah.
We actually I don't want to say placate. That's not the word I'm looking for. We address the needs of the kids that are lower to try to bring them up. Whereas if you have a student that is at grade level or even above, it's sometimes difficult to give them more enriching work because you're worried about this kid that's not even at that baseline.
Yeah.
Again, I can't speak for every teacher, but for myself, like I kind of erred on the side of like, okay, well, you're already at grade level. You're already meeting the expectations. So I know that I could push you further, but like, I got to worry about this kid that is like 2 grades behind. And I need to do what I can to bring them up. Right. So again, this is just something that the general public doesn't understand. You're constantly playing this like triage, right? It's like, and then again, like once I plan for these lower kids, Once I'm done spending hours planning for that lower kid, I have to be like, okay, now I have like maybe 30 minutes to plan for these higher kids, or maybe I just say forget them all together, or maybe I spend the whole rest of my night planning for these other kids, and then I haven't had a second to myself.
Absolutely.
You get what I'm saying? So it's a challenge. It's a balancing act.
No, it's definitely difficult because you've got a current line and you've got people who land on both sides of the line. And as a teacher, you want to make sure these people can advance to the next grade. So you want to make sure no kid is being left behind.
Exactly.
That might mean at times the people who are exceeding the expectations, they don't get the chance to challenge themselves as they should. But I remember I know when you get to grade 12, there's like the advanced functions class and then the calculus class, and then there might be like just the regular functions class.
Yes.
How do you think that could help if there is like a grade 9 plus class or just a regular grade 9 class? Is that a thing? And how could we make sure that we can meet people where they're at?
Yeah, I believe that that's a thing. You can always find sort of enrichment classes, and then obviously at the high school level, we talk about AP classes, for example. And depending on the school board that you're in, they might have like advanced level courses and things of this nature. It's just that's where the family comes in, and that's where the student really needs to come in to figure out what type of learner there is and whether or not they're able to meet that challenge or not. And to be frank, I think that, and I know a bunch of high school teachers are going to hate me for saying this, but I feel like once you get to that level, you know what you're dealing with. When I'm dealing with a grade 12 class that's in an AP class, for example,
Right.
like I'm pretty confident that they know they're in the place where they're meant to be. Whereas at the younger grades, sometimes it's talking about the beginning of high school, you may have to tap a kid on their shoulder and say, you need to get a tutor. Or, for example, like, this might be too challenging for you, having those difficult conversations, right? And again, like, you're asking like young teenagers to make these decisions when they're really not even sure. In some cases, like where they don't even know what they want to do with the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So it's like they're taking math just to take it, but they don't know how they're going to use it per se, right? They don't know what the best course of action might be. So that's a really tough question to answer because the advanced classes are out there, but I think in a lot of cases it's up to the families and to the student to sort of do this figuring out process to see if they're ready for it, based on their grades or based on how much they struggled or succeeded in that particular class or subject.
It makes me want to ask a little bit about like people's favorite classes. So I'll switch the topic a little bit. I want to ask, when you were in school, what was your favorite class?
Oh God. I had a few actually. I liked school.
School, yeah.
Like I actually liked school. I know people are gonna maybe think that the first thing I'm gonna say is gym. A lot of kids love to say, "Oh, gym was my favorite class," but no. One of my favorite classes was actually English, because we got to talk, and at some stage I realized I was a good writer. So I liked that. Another class that I actually quite enjoyed, and they don't do this as much anymore. We called it family studies, and we called it design and technology.
Okay.
So you would like go back and forth for like half a year. So family studies would be literally how to like be an adult.
Oh, okay.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Is it a parenting class or is
no,
it?
not a parenting class per se, but we would learn like basics of like cooking, the basics of cooking. We would learn how to do laundry. We learned how to sew.
Wow.
Like this was like, and I know this is like for a lot of people watching this now, probably like, what the heck? Because these things don't happen as much anymore.
Yeah.
And design and tech was like essentially that, like using woodworking tools,
Right.
using drills and saws and various, machinery to create something and build something. Like I remember making a spice rack and bringing it home for my mom, or like things of that nature. And those were really fun because they were hands-on and they were real.
Real
Like,
life application.
you know what I mean? Like I could clearly make the connection between like, hey, I just made something
Mhm.
and I can give it to somebody. Or yeah, I see my mom cooking every day.
Mhm.
Like now I can cook a meal, right?
Yeah.
So I thought those subjects were really good. Yeah, I really enjoyed those subjects and the English piece because I got good marks.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the other piece. Whenever kids see success in things, I think they start, having a positive connotation with it.
Absolutely.
You
Just
know,
kind of
so
like building good habits. But I want to ask, like, when it comes to these people, let's
yeah.
say I was able to design that spice rack. I bring it home to my mom. I can
Mhm.
see the benefit and the beauty of that.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are classes that are very theory based. So I
Yes.
want to talk to you about theory versus practical.
Okay.
Like obviously there are benefits of both, but where do you think a good balance should be? Let's say at the high school level.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm a big component, or a big proponent rather, of what we call experiential learning. And I think that there is a huge disconnect sometimes with the stuff that we learn
Hmm.
in schools because yeah, sometimes it's very much theory based, and you don't get the hands-on experience.
Right.
Like I think that what people used to tell me is college is for more like hands-on, and
University is
university
for
is for more like studying and theory.
yeah.
And the whole concept of that is so foolish to me. Like the whole like the idea of sitting for hours and hours and hours and end in front of a desk at a chair and talking a lot about the theory
Hmm.
and not actually like the doing. There's a disconnect there completely. Like again, thinking about becoming a teacher, my best experience, I know you're talking about maybe like earlier years, like elementary and stuff like that,
Right.
but thinking about becoming a teacher, like my best experience was actually being on the job teaching,
Yeah.
because I figured, you know what I mean? And there was a proponent of that, or a component of that in our course where, you had to be on the field actually teaching.
Right.
And so I had to go through those nerves of being in front of a group of people. Like we could talk about the concept of education for days and days, but like
Right.
at some point I have to actually like be there doing it, have that kid talk back to me, or have that kid not be engaged to then start to problem solve.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? And it's like we don't put enough emphasis on that, and I think that that's we're doing a disservice a lot of our students because everything is so abstract to them. Like another thing that comes to mind is this concept of an engineer. Like when do you do engineering? You do it in university.
Yeah.
But like what, like how are we really teaching kids about engineering before that so that they can make an educated or informed decision about whether that's something for them? And you think about like engineering and how many different types of engineering there are, right? Like I just feel like we don't do a good enough job of like actually showing kids, teenagers, what this job would entail. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Because like
Like
a
in
lot
the
of
real
people,
world.
how many people do you know as a teacher who they've gone to school
Yeah.
and then they'll say, "Oh, I went and I was doing this for a year or two, and I realized this isn't what I want to do," and then they switch careers.
That's literally my story.
But it takes a while. And if that's your story, I recently turned 30,
Yes.
so I went to school originally for pre-med to be a doctor.
Right.
I realized, and I was doing well. I had like scholarships, everything was going well. I realized, okay, I don't have the money or the financial means to continue this path. I'm going to switch and be a filmmaker. Oh, financial bad choice.
But that's
Yeah.
what it was. I thought you didn't have the passion. I thought
No, I loved it. If I could be a doctor now, I would still do it.
Oh, very
Yeah,
interesting.
it's a beautiful thing being able to help people, but it's like, okay, well, I don't have the 250K to go into debt and watch my parents like work so hard
right.
to be a doctor. So then I switched and I said I'm going to be a filmmaker. That chasing my dreams, very bad idea. Instead, what I did was I worked in the bank, in retail and corporate investment banking for about 8.5, 9 years. That was able to give me my foundation. But if I had known, maybe I wouldn't have gone that path. And no one was there to say, hey, this is what a doctor actually does on a day-to-day basis. You think about like Grey's Anatomy and House and all of these
Exactly.
things, but that's not really what is happening.
Or even the amount of studying, like to do pre-med. I think it's like 7 years, the whole, Like that's after you get your degree. It's an additional 7 years.
So then
and then you have to do your, what's it called?
Residency.
Your residency. Yeah. Oh my God. So it's like, aside from the money piece, it's the time commitment too, right? That a lot of kids, there's a bunch of, like I know a student right now, she's in grade 11 and she has every like intention of becoming a doctor. And this is a good conversation to have with her. Like, do you understand that you are going to need to make this type of financial investment?
Yeah.
And in addition to that, this time investment is going to be made. So when you are like, you're going to graduate when you're like 35.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yeah.
Just as long as you know that going in,
right,
and you still want to do it, okay, fine. Go ahead and do it. But I just don't think that we do a good enough job of really making that clear. And then to add to what you said, like, what is the day-to-day? What does that entail?
They don't know.
Right?
Because maybe they want to be teachers because they want to help and educate people. They don't know that you're, at night writing report cards.
They don't see
everything else. And I think it would be great if there was like, before there was the idea of take your kids to work day, there should be like take your work to school day and have all the people explain, like, here's how I got here. Here's how many years this path might have taken me. Because how many people are like, okay, I want to do this. Then a few years in, they're 2-3 years in, they're like, I want to switch paths. How many 2 or 3 years do we have in our lives?
Especially when you think about the age that people are making these decisions.
Right.
Like I remember, honestly, I remember being in my last year of high school, and I remember walking with a friend, like we're like on our way traveling home, and he says to me, so what are you going to do after this year?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. He's like, really? He's like, why don't you go to like college or university? Literally, that was the conversation right there.
But
and I was like,
why is
it
your friend and not like, someone else, like the guy?
Right, no,
like,
we have entities out there.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, when you're that age, like, there's other things that are in your mind. You're thinking about the parties. You're thinking about, the girls, or you're thinking about just this and that, like just kid stuff, right?
It's true.
You're thinking about like your image and all this stuff. And like, a bit of you is thinking about like what's going to happen after I graduate.
Right.
But that's like secondary to like a lot of other stuff.
Right.
People are like the height of puberty at this point, right? So it's like, that's like, that's important. And like maybe you have good parents and they're like on your back about it and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of factors there, but I just remember having that conversation and being like, shoot, maybe I should like start looking into this, right?
Yeah.
And then it became like not a scramble, but it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And so I decided, okay, I want to be an editor. Going back to the English thing.
Okay.
I like English. So I'm going to be an editor. I'm going to translate because I learned French as well.
Okay,
so I was like, I'll be a translator and I'll be an editor. And I was like, I could work anywhere in the world. I don't have to be tied down to any one place. I can do this from anywhere in the world, right? And it's all like freelance work. Love the concept and the idea of it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's fast forward to my first year of university.
Yeah.
And I'm like, somebody kill me now. Because this is the most boring stuff ever. I'm just sitting and I'm looking at these papers all day.
Yeah.
And I'm just basically just like grading somebody's bad grammar. Like I can't do, like, this is so boring.
Yeah.
Or like changing something from English to French,
Yeah.
French to English. And because I wasn't engaged and invested in that, like my marks weren't that good. I was getting like B minuses would be nice to say. I was getting around C's. And then I had like I was like in charge of a camp 1 year during the summer, working with a bunch of kids. And it didn't feel like work. I was like, okay, this is fun.
Yeah.
Because we were just like doing games and they were like doing all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm in charge of this. Like I was like, okay, we need to switch. Something's not working here.
Yes.
Because and that was it. My second year, I made that pivot. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to become a teacher.
But check this out. Like, you were able to find something you love and you found it and you got in that groove and then you continued and you were able to be very successful from there.
Right.
My thing is, I wish you could learn about this in grade 7.
Exactly.
Like, there's like, you have to do 40 hours of volunteer work.
Yes.
I wish it was like you have to do 40 hours every year from grade 7 onwards. Try out a trade. I want you to try out something administrative. I want you to for me, what I think is If you're 19 to 21 and you say, "Hey, I want to switch careers," it's totally cool. But if imagine you had that information at 15 and this fourth one is really speaking to me. Then you could say, you know what? In grade 11 and 12, I know the classes I want to take. I know earlier because a lot of people in grade 12, they get to college and they make money. And sorry, they're spending money. They're spending money on OSAP, on living. By year 1 and 2, I still have friends who are like,
still don't know what to do.
What is that about?
No, but let's just actually add to that.
Okay.
How many people right now that are listening to this
Talk to them.
are sitting and are getting ready to go to work or are going to go to work after this weekend or whatever the case may be in a job that they absolutely hate and wish exactly like what you're saying, that they could rewind 5 to 10 years and make a different decision. But like life has set in now. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you're feeling like it's harder to start. Maybe you have, and I've told you this one before, maybe you have a job that has what we call golden handcuffs, which is like it's just good enough that it's not pushing you to leave it, right? Maybe you have good benefits. Maybe your pay's decent. You hate going there. But you know what? It's giving me enough that I can, outside of here, do some of the things that I want to do, right? So it's just like, and this is the issue, right? Like a lot of people don't figure this out until they feel themselves like it's too late. Right. And so this is one of those things. And it's because I feel like we don't do a good job when kids are young, really showing them what the options are for them, what the options are out there for them. Like I'm dealing with the same thing. Like I love to talk. Like so funny. Like even in starting this podcast, it's just like, you know, you have these reoccurring thoughts that come in your mind. I remember being in university as well and going out one night and speaking to somebody and then being like, yeah, I'm in journalism. I'm doing broadcasting. And me thinking to myself, geez, I would love to do that. But then just pushing it aside, like it's too late. You've already decided. You know what I mean? You know what you're going to do. Yeah, I'm already in this. Like I'm not even going to like entertain that idea because it's too much now. Like to go back and to start like, and this was when I was still in university, maybe third or fourth year, right? Like just talking to somebody at a bar. But it's just like one of those things. But I've always had in the back of my mind where someone was like, oh, you might be good on radio or something like that. And then I go back to that comment, like that person telling me about their broadcasting and me thinking about going to journalism and whatever. And then you just kind of close these pathways off to yourself arbitrarily because you're just like, no, I'm just going to, do you know what I mean? And I'm not blaming this on anybody per se. It's not education's fault. It's not my teacher's fault. It's not my parents' fault. But we just have a system that's set up that doesn't necessarily encourage kids to be curious about what they want to do when they get older. It's just like, follow these instructions. Follow this blueprint. Sit down. Be quiet. Today we're doing math. Do this. You know what I mean? We don't spend enough time asking the questions and like having them do the figuring out of like, what would I do when I get older? You know what I mean? And then we start asking them when they're like 13 or 14 years old and they don't know because no one's asked them ever. And you deal with the issue of them being like in the height of puberty and it's like,
there's a lot of stuff.
Come on. There's just a lot happening. Right. So yeah, it's a tough one.
I think what's important is like, and if you're watching this now, here's a PSA to you. You might have went a long way. Perhaps you went the wrong way, but it's never too late to turn around and to do things differently.
Not even turn around, I would say, though, just to pivot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people are going back to school in their 50s. Like there are people that are trying to go back and do things that they know give them joy. You know what I mean? And like I always have to go back to this stuff. You know, people say if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But somehow down the line, we start having these responsibilities and whatnot, and we start convincing ourselves, no, I can't do that. There's too much on the line, or there's this fear that I don't want to take this plunge because things are just safe right now, or what will other people say? You know what I mean? What's my family going to think? So there's just a lot of issues there, but it's just like, you know, again, like I took this plunge, you took this plunge to some degree, and there's people all over the place that are making these quote unquote pivots, and I think that we're in a day and age now where you're seeing all these businesses start up. The infrastructure is there, especially thinking about the pandemic. People are starting to recognize that maybe they won't make as much money at first, but but they're balancing this concept of like making the money versus like their mental health.
Absolutely.
Doing something that like actually doesn't drive them crazy.
Yeah, perfect.
Not even something that brings them joy, but something that doesn't drive them crazy. Going to this place every day.
If that's what it takes for us to say that's success, But it's a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
And I want to ask now about this whole idea of like going to school, because I'll give you an example. Let's say someone goes to school for filming. They spend 3 to 4 years studying the theory of film.
Right.
But then you have someone else who says, I can't afford film school. I'm just going to go and intern and be what we call a production assistant and work their way up. So my question to you is, let's say 5 or 10 years down the line, like sometimes the person who didn't go to school might be further in their career in that field than somebody who did go to school. Why do you think that could be?
Yeah, I think nowadays that's the case because experience is everything. Like I don't think, and I don't know, people might disagree with me, but I don't think the credentials hold as much weight anymore. Knowing that I can go onto YouTube, and there's like even universities offer like free classes.
The Google certificates.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's like, no, literally, you can go like a Harvard and you can do free lectures. So,
Mom, if you're watching, I'm going to go to Harvard. I love you.
So the reality of the situation is like, yeah, you can have that piece of paper. I guess that helps you with credibility. But to be honest with you, it's like the eye test. Like I'm going to give you an example. Oh my God, this is a funny one.
Yeah.
So like, it's not even that funny. Like I went to, so I tried to get a side job. Okay. And every teacher out here that's listening to me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Every single one of us has a side job or a side job that's in progress or more than one side gig. And one of my side gigs was, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to go back to the restaurant industry to supplement my income a little bit.
Right.
I am going to go back to serving. I actually worked in a kitchen for a really long time. I did the serving for a little bit. I wasn't particularly good at it, but I know that there's money to be made. Right. So I was like, okay, this was fairly recently too. Let me go back and just do some serving on the side.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get a job, give my resume, do the whole thing. And I didn't make it past the trial period. Okay. So in the restaurant industry, you basically have like 3, maybe 4 shifts. They come and they look at you like you don't get paid. You might get tipped out, whatever, right? Or you actually do get paid, but you don't necessarily get tipped out. Right. But there are certain look-fors. And I have a couple good friends that have been in the restaurant industry for a while. And they're like, yeah, whenever there's somebody new, we stand around and we watch them. And one of the first look-fors they do is how you hold the tray. And I was so nervous about spilling the drinks. Like what I don't want to do is spill everything everywhere on top of, clients or whatever, or just, right? So the first thing they look at when you're training or when you're trying to get this job is how do you hold the tray? And apparently, unbeknownst to me, that was what completely took me out of the running. So do you take it off the table gingerly? Are you holding it with 2 hands?
Yeah.
Are you able to actually carry it with 1 hand? All of these things, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the experience piece comes in. So I could have been like, oh yeah, I went to this, hospitality school and I learned all this stuff about serving or whatever. But what does that really mean? If I come into the job and I don't know how to take an order, I'm hesitating, I'm stuttering, I don't know how to carry a tray. Like, do you see the difference? You know what I mean? That theory can only get me so far.
Absolutely.
Like at some point, like you have to be able to show that you can do the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think too many of our kids are in that situation where they're graduating from school and it's like, yeah, I'm supposed to know this. And then you're like on the job and you're feeling like an idiot because you actually don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And you spent 4 years and all kinds of money learning about this, and you're on the job and you don't know what to do. So it's like, what just happened here? What did I spend the last 4 years doing?
That's kind of a fail. And
So-
we want to set people up for success.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you think people can get more experience? Because like I really think that people should have more chances to have like
Yeah.
some people had, what do you call it when you go co-op? Like placements and
Yes,
internships.
placements.
People should be able to
internships,
go and
yes,
try
yes,
stuff. You know
yes.
what I mean? Like,
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, like that's not like, I'm just thinking about my university
yeah.
and that translating and editing thing. Like that's part of the reason why I signed on to doing that as my degree was because they had an internship program that was attached to it. But even that was competitive. Not everybody in the program gets that, right? Like you have to have the right grades. You have to be the person that talks to the professor and is like known. And I was getting the wrong grades and I was not talking to the professor.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't going to get that internship. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things, but I do think that to some degree it should be almost like mandatory. Like you can't say like my daughter's like, I don't like this food. And I'll say to her, you can't make that decision because you've never tried this food.
Wow.
You can't say that you don't like it because you've never tried it before. At least if you tried it, now you can say after the fact, okay, I've tried it and I hate the taste of it, right? But I just think that every kid needs to, again, to connect it, every kid needs to be able to actually have that experience in the thing before they say, this is what I want to do.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think that that's what we're missing a little bit in education. And let's be honest, okay? Like the model that we have right now is a little bit factory-ish, right? We're not personalizing education for kids. It's like a one-size-fits-all approach, right?
And just like we were talking about earlier, it's not like we're not trying. It's just there's a lot to do. There's the report cards. You got people, instead of at a grade 9 level, they're at a grade 7 or grade 11 in the same class. So it's like, it seems like this sector just needs more resources.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people have good ideas in education. Obviously, going to teachers college and things like that, you learn all about these people, Piaget, John Dewey, all these thought leaders when it comes to education, and that's great. But we're in 2025.
Right.
And the problem is that from board to board, from government to government, there's different agendas, right? And probably my biggest concern, my biggest problem with education right now is that we seemingly can't talk freely about what's not working.
Right.
And I mentioned this to like a friend of mine not that long ago, and their response was because somebody is, when you call these things out, maybe somebody's not going to make money as a result of it. Like they just related it to capitalism in some way, and that's fine. And I'm sure there's something to be said about that. But it's like, if you're working in an industry that literally is supposed to be supporting people and helping people reach their potential, and you can't talk freely about what's not working, there's a huge disconnect there. And he starts to ask the question like, yeah, maybe this is for something else. Like, why can't I say that this thing's not working for these kids without fear of being reprimanded? You know what I mean? Like, it's so weird.
Right.
And there's like this underlying, like, unspoken culture that exists in education where it's like, we're not allowed to call these things out. We're just supposed to be quiet and just continue trucking on like it's been. But it's like, we're fighting with these kids over technology and the addiction to social media and all these things. And it's like, why? Like, I never signed up to do that. Like, that's not my job here. That's not my role, right? So it's like, I'm just supposed to be quiet about that. I'm not supposed to say anything about it. I'm just supposed to put my head down and teach. Even if I have kids, you know, cussing me out or just being super disrespectful or vaping in the bathrooms or doing what else. It's like, just figure it out. Just teach. But it's not just teaching.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're being left to figure out things that it's just not fair. And that's another thing that's impacting, the mental health of the educators that are out there, right? Like it's not just teaching. Unfortunately, guys, it's not just teaching anymore. And we need people to start recognizing that and to start actually caring enough that we start making meaningful change
Right.
as it relates to education.
I mean, I think 3 topics that come up to mind for me are learning about AI, learning about how to create business, and like taxes. Like those are 3 things that people really should learn about.
I would say you're on track with that. I would also add to that, just again, to piggyback off the taxes thing, would be the financial literacy piece.
Right.
But again, there are people out there that will argue that that's not to certain entities' benefits for us to be financially literate, right? Like for us to know about debt, for us to understand about interest rates.
Right.
There's a lot of people that would argue that is being done on purpose. The fact that that's not part of our curriculum, like that's not an intrinsic part of our curriculum, a lot of people will argue that there's a reason for that. Right? Because you think like these are basic adulting things.
Yes.
Like these are things we know that the kids need to be able to do. Right? Like you could get somebody to do your taxes, but you could also do them yourself. Right? And this idea of like creating a budget and being financially literate and not being in debt, like you would think that would be like one of the main things that we would want to teach kids.
Yes.
But it's actually an afterthought. And you start having to ask the question, like, why? Like, again, my buddy the other day, what's the most useless thing you learned? Pythagorean theorem.
Right.
Why does he know the Pythagorean theorem and he doesn't know how to do a budget? Or no, better yet, I don't even know if he knows how to do a budget or not.
Okay.
But why was he taught the Pythagorean theorem but wasn't taught how to budget?
Good question. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you ask anybody walking down the street, which one's going to be more beneficial in my lifetime? And we already know what the answer is going to be. So it's just very curious that we do things in certain ways. And then like when you question them, somebody's going to give you some BS answer, or maybe some answer that's rooted in conspiracy theories. But these are realistic questions we need to start asking.
Let me ask you this. Do you think we should have a class on common sense? Because these days I'm seeing some uncommon amount of sense.
Oh my God, this is one of my quotes that I live by. Common sense is not always common.
Okay. You think there should be like a class on common sense? A logic class? Because some in philosophy they have a logic class. But why is it that you have to wait till you're 18?
I took a class in the philosophy of ethics.
Okay.
Which is kind of similar.
Yeah.
To what you're talking about. But yeah, it's a thing. Like I remember getting mad at a student just the other day, because she's got the attitude going on, and it's like I greet every student at the door.
Yeah.
And I'll give them a fist bump or a high five or whatever.
Yeah.
But her whole thing is like, I'm always in a bad mood or whatever. Like, I shouldn't say it like that. Like, she's just a teenager, and sometimes they're grumpy and they're moody, and I don't actually know what's going on, if there's something at home or whatever. But every single time we do this greeting, it's like, I'm not going to fist bump you. I'm not going to even look you in the eye. I'm just going to say hello real quick, and I'm going to sneak through the class. Yeah. The other day, actually last week, I had to be like, listen, okay, I'm not asking you to touch my hand. You don't have to fist bump me, none of that. But I do expect that we're going to at least make eye contact. It's like our way of saying, hey, you are a person and you exist. So like to answer that question, like that's something that I'm even noticing from kids, like a lot these days. Is just like you'll walk by them in the hallway or whatever, even when you're talking to them, and it's kind of like that eye contact piece or the common courtesy piece. It's like, we don't have to be best friends. You can acknowledge that somebody's there. You can do a head nod. You can do a hi. You can do a quick smile. Like it's not, it's okay. You're going to be okay. You know what I mean? And I don't know. So again, to your point about common sense, like some of these basic things like are being lost. Some of these things that we kind of take for granted. And then as adults, we'll get mad at kids because they're not doing it. But we haven't actually taught them how to do it. So again, common sense is not always common. Do you get what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
I get you. And I'm wondering, like, why isn't there a thing where the city can get a survey, a referendum, and say, what do you want your kids to be taught? And there are some check marks. And then they can rework the curriculum a little bit. Because I don't remember the last time I had to use my ancient Mesopotamian history, but I do know when I have to pay my taxes, and
Right,
that's every year.
right.
So, I mean, like,
Right.
parents and people should have a little bit more thought, but everyone's working and trying to make, trying to make their wage and
Yeah.
parenting, like especially for my parents, I have two immigrant parents, so
Mm-hmm.
both of them were working.
Mm-hmm.
The school took a lot of care of me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came back, they were like, okay, well, let me see your test.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they knew if I was getting an education or not. They might ask me some questions. My dad was
Right.
an engineer, my mom was a nurse. So
Right.
they have questions about biology and math.
Right.
But no one could be like, okay, well, your son can't swim, so he's going to drown in the pool.
Exactly.
Like there are those areas that are blind spots.
No, those gaps.
And
yeah.
we have to find a way to fill those gaps. But if no one's talking about it, how are we supposed to address them, right?
Yeah, there's so much there with what you said because sometimes you'll have parents that just really are just like dropping the kids off and just expect that.
Kind of like daycare.
In a way, some teachers will say, yeah, we feel like glorified babysitters. But there's a lot of pressure too because then they just expect and sometimes it's not like it's not that they're trying to treat it as daycare.
Mm-hmm.
Like some cultures and some parents legitimately place high value
Mm-hmm.
on education and teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And they really look at you as a professional. And so when they're dropping their kids off, they're actually feeling like you're going to make this magic happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And unfortunately, there's so much that we have to contend with nowadays that as a parent, it's very hard for them to take the laissez-faire approach, right? Yeah. Where they're just kind of like hands off and leaving it up to the teachers. And we understand that there's a lot of work that parents have to do aside from their regular jobs, right? Mm-hmm. Like the parenting, like it's hard. Like let's just call it what it is. But I think that there needs to be more of a shared relationship. Like just even thinking about what you said, mm-hmm. like maybe it should be a situation where parents have more of a say. What do you think your kid should learn?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they would directly relate it to probably what their experience is right now, mm-hmm. like what they're struggling with right now. And I believe that there's a lot of people that would concur with me that, or us, when we talk about taxes, financial literacy, even going all the way back to what I was talking about earlier with family studies mm-hmm. and design and technology. Like, I'm not afraid to say it. Like, I am not very handy. You know what I mean? And I wish I was.
Man,
like I actually wish I was, and I know
two of my
that
tires popped,
right?
And I have never been taught how to change a tire.
No, CAA.
I got CAA
or AAA, whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
AAA. Yeah,
yeah, AAA.
But
yeah,
that's the thing, which is like, why has no one ever shown us this? Okay, I want to wrap up with some questions here, but my first question to you is, what was one of the most valuable things that you learned in school?
Oh God, that's a great question. I ask this to people, and I don't know myself.
We just started, so yeah, take it easy on yourself. Yeah.
Probably the most valuable thing that I learned in education was social capital.
Okay, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I grew up in a neighborhood that wasn't very well to do.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember going to a school eventually when I was in middle school that was outside of my neighborhood. And I remember that one of my good friends at that school was actually very well to do. Mm-hmm. And I remember going over to his house at lunch. And I remember being in absolute shock that people lived like this.
Yeah.
And I had my like little lunch, which was like I think a beef patty and a pop.
Yeah. And
he was like, put that away. He was like, I have somebody here that's gonna make us lunch. Mm-hmm. And they did that. And we sat there during the lunch period and we Like we played video games and somebody brought our lunch out to us.
Yeah.
And we just ate it. And then like I remember getting invited to his birthday party and all of these things, and come to find out both of his parents are lawyers and whatever else, right? But this was something that was completely new for me. So just like this understanding of social capital, like when I think of people that are in prominent positions, I tell kids this all the time, it's not the smartest person in the room that's going to get that job. First of all, you need to be well liked, right? People like to work with people that are nice people.
Yeah.
Let's just say, to put it
That
simply.
Yeah.
Exactly. But also, like, it's the people that you meet. Like, I've actually seen things online, like a better predictor of, and I wish I could quote exactly where I found this, but a better predictor of your child's education is the people that they meet and they grow up around versus like the teacher that they get. So that social capital piece is humongous. I'm just thinking about like private school students, for example, that might not be the most academically strong, but in the summertime, they can get a job from their friend's parent that owns this business. And they're starting to gain set experience that we're talking about. You get what I'm saying? That propels them to a position in the future.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And it's that social capital piece that I don't think we spend enough time on. It's that exposure to that we want our kids to have. Nature versus nurture, even like having your kids be exposed to different types of engineering jobs, different types of wealth, you know what I mean? Different places in the world. I think would speak volumes for their future success.
Yeah, I think a part of that is the school. Like, you can't control who lives in the neighborhood, but every community does have a responsibility to its children and to its people who are in school.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're not trying to make parents feel bad for not bringing their kids on trips per se, but schools can definitely build relationships with private schools.
Yes.
Schools can build relationships with other schools in other neighborhoods and create connections there. You know, like I'm thinking about a private school that was attached to the school that I'm currently working at. And what used to happen was once a week, they would come and this private school, this was their way of sort of giving back, but they would do different initiatives with the students at my school, whether it was reading, whether it was playing a shared game. I even had an idea for the two schools to come up with an Instagram account that teaches people about that particular neighborhood. So it gave a chance for the private school to come over to our neighborhood and learn about like what's in that neighborhood, but also the opposite was true. So the kids from our neighborhood can then go visit them in their neighborhood and see what that's like. Very akin to what we're talking about, where I met that friend and I was like, oh my God, like I've never seen this before, right? Like I think just even being able to see that, like I'm thinking about so many kids that I've tried to convince, like, just go down the street, get out of this neighborhood and see what's around the corner from you. You know what I mean? And we undervalue that, you know, what it's like to just show kids possibilities. You know, I think there's a lot of value in that. So
And the world's a big place.
yeah,
And, you know,
exactly.
being able to show them that, I think, is a beautiful thing. And it's sad to say that some kids won't get that opportunity. But the more that we can make these happen, the more that we can have these kind of conversations, this is how we can make those changes. And I'll wrap up with two questions. My first question is, you know, as we're continuing with this podcast,
Yes.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about what kind of guests you'd like to speak to. So if you can look in that camera and talk about the guests and like who you think should watch this podcast and who you'd like to bring on.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast is for anybody that has any relationship with education. So whether you are a parent, a former student, a current student, or just interested in this concept, not even concept, in this topic, I think this is for you. And one thing that we've often talked about is that everybody has a relationship with education. Whether you dropped out of school, whether you were homeschooled, whether you went to private school, whether you went to public school, whether you're still a student, one thing that we know is true is that almost everybody seems to have some sort of opinion, perspective, experience, relationship with education. And so what I would really like to see on this podcast is for thought leaders, people that have great ideas in education, to please come on and share with the rest of the world what you are creating. But I also would like to get perspectives, ideas. You know, I am not big on people that are in line with my opinions and perspective. I think that this podcast is really supposed to provide a platform for all different types of perspectives. Okay, so people that don't think there are certain things in education that should not be included, we would love to have you on. You know, this is not. We want both sides, both sides of the story, and everything in between. And I hope that makes sense for a lot of people. But I definitely don't think it would be helpful for us to just promote one viewpoint or one perspective. And just again, to piggyback off what I said earlier, there's this undertone in education where we cannot talk about things that are not working, or we cannot talk about controversial topics without fear that people are going to jump all over us. And I would like to provide a space where people can do that.
Because you know what the crazy thing is, Cecil? They might not be talking about it from teacher to parent, but you can bet the kids are talking about it.
100%. 100%. And they're talking about this at their dinner tables.
Yeah. And they know. And
teachers are talking about this in the staff room, right? Like, these conversations are being had. The problem is that we're just worried to share our perspective for fear of repercussions, or, and this is going to be a controversial, not necessarily controversial, or because we also live in a society where it's like we're not allowed to change our opinion. So if I say something to you today and I change my mind tomorrow, the internet's now going to come for me. Like, I'm not allowed to change my perspective on something. That's silly. It's actually foolish, and people are allowed to grow, they're allowed to develop, they're allowed to believe something today and then change their viewpoint on it tomorrow. Absolutely. They should be allowed to do that. And anyway, this is a call out to anybody that wants to share what their thoughts are or what they're doing in education. We have a spot for you. We have a chair for you. Okay.
challengingclasspodcast@gmail.com.
That is correct.
And finally, what do you plan to do in the summer? Because you know it's going to be summertime, and you know, we're going to have a little bit of time off. I know teachers, they could use that break, but what is that going to look like for you? How are you going to enjoy this?
Okay, I'm going to sleep. I am going to get outside in the sun. I am going to do some planning for the upcoming year, unfortunately.
That's okay.
But yeah, I'm just going to enjoy. I'm going to try my best to enjoy myself and recuperate from the school year. And going into a new school year, I'm really, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, reassess my boundaries, right? Because it's a constant work-life balance juggling situation. And like, as a parent, I want to make sure that I have my priorities in check. And as much as I love my job, my kids are my priority. My health is my priority. So that comes first. But I hope that gives people an idea.
And we definitely hope you enjoyed your summer, because, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you do for yourself, for the community, for your school, for your own kids as a father. And, you know, we as an audience, we definitely appreciate it. And we hope to see you with some more fulfilling podcasts right here on Challenging Class Podcast.
Thank you for the questions, Renji.
Stay
you did
tuned.
a great job of interviewing. Thank you.
All right.